Next up is Don't Tell Me to Smile with Heather McDonald. Heather is a comedian, actress, and author. Her latest stand-up special, Juicy Scoop, recently premiered on Amazon Prime Video, and she's regularly featured on The Wendy Williams Show. She also wrote, produced, and appeared on E's top-rated Chelsea Lately for its entire 7-year run. Heather, take it away.
Hello, I'm Heather McDonald, and I am really honored to be part of the USC Women's Conference. A little about me, I graduated from USC in 1992, and I'm a comedian, a stand-up comedian, a writer, an author, and Juicy Scoop, right behind me, is my podcast that I've had for over 5.5 years. And I just want to talk a little bit to you about what it's like pre-COVID. I'm sure you've been there. You're a woman. I'm talking to the women here. And you're doing your errands and you're just like dropping up your dry cleaning, going to the bank, coffee. This happened to me. This happened to every girl, I'm sure. And this older guy looks at me and is like, hey, why don't you smile? You'd look prettier. And I'm like, why don't you smile? You know what? Oh, I'm sorry. Did my bitching resting face at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday throw your day off, sir? And it really just got me thinking about my career and my life and my age and how it's so much different, thank goodness, to the younger generation in their attitude. And no matter what age you are, I think I can share some light on some tips and advice of really being your authentic self and the good things that have changed in entertainment and the world and business today for all people, men included. So first, let's just start from the beginning. I grew up in Woodland Hills, which is a part of the San Fernando Valley, and I wanted to go to USC. And as you know, USC is very expensive. And especially at that time, which was 1988, the area surrounding it was even, I think, very, very scary to a parent to send their child there. And my parents were nervous about me going there. And they said, why don't you go to U of A or something like that? And I'm like, well, because I want to live in Southern California and I just want to go there. I just have this calling. And my dad said, that's not a good enough reason. And I said, well, every time I see a USC license plate frame, especially Alumni one, if I don't get to go there, I'll just feel depressed. And my dad literally thought about how many you see on the 101 and the 405. And he said, all right, I'll let you go. And I didn't, the other part of growing up in LA is I didn't go to the filmed program or the acting or drama program because I was so jaded as a kid growing up in LA. I knew I wanted to be a performer. I knew I had a gift, but I was like, wow, even 6-year-old kids walk up to you and say, yeah, a lot of pilots don't get picked up. Good luck, sugar. Like, people are jaded here. And I thought, my gosh, my parents are paying all this money and we're not super wealthy. And I'll just be like a business person. And so there I am at SC, and I'm not really pursuing my dream, but I'm having a great time, and I'm doing communications. And then I would take every opportunity I could to do the acting, where I would take a extra course in improv, or I would use the full 18 units and do my 2 units of some night acting class that wasn't part of my major. And I did a speech and communications class and did a dramatic reading from the play Extremities in like a small normal classroom, like not a stage. And they said, why aren't you pursuing acting and drama or something like that? And again, I just kept pushing it down. And at that time, there were kids that had pagers, and they were not drug dealers. They were, maybe some of them were, but they were actors, and that meant they had an agent. And every time I saw a fellow student with a pager, I felt like this pang. I was not pursuing what I should be pursuing, and I have special gifts that not everybody has been blessed with, and I'm refusing to be brave enough to use the gifts God gave me. And if I don't, it's kind of a big screw you, like, to God. So it was really hard for me to come to that. And I even took this first job out of school that was being an assistant buyer for Robinson's May. And thank goodness they fired me, because I mean, I've never quit. And so those times that you get fired are really the gifts, you know. And I always say, you know, there's this thing, oh, everything works out for a reason. It's like, well, it may not feel like that at time. It may take a couple years for you to go, oh my God, if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't happen, and this wouldn't happen, and I wouldn't be in this much better place today. So along with accepting things that you think are doors being closed or being fired, also I ask you to have some patience with it, because it really may not present yourself and you may have a lot of regrets. And there's nothing wrong with having regrets. I, to this day, have simple regrets. One was once I started doing acting, and I did the Groundlings at on Melrose, which was sketch comedy, and I started stand-up at the same time. I always thought I should be a stand-up. My parents told me I should be a stand-up, but there was this other part of me, being the good Catholic girl who wanted to be married and have kids, is I'd see the female stand-ups that were doing well at that time when I was in high school or whatnot, and I just didn't relate to them. And I thought, my God, you know, it's like such an aggressive way to be as a woman. What man would ever want to marry a female stand-up? And I really thought that. And I thought, but I want to be married and have kids. And finally, after I got fired from that first corporate job, I just said, I got to do this. I took a little learning annex class, and I did stand up for the first time with some strangers, and I was able to explain a joke to strangers, because I always thought, who's going to find me funny unless they know me? And I realized, okay, I think I understand the math of how to do jokes for strangers. And in doing that, I also just said, well, if no one wants to marry me, if this turns out to be unattractive to the guys that I liked, because the guys I was interested in when I was in college was that typical USC business guy with a nice family and all of that. And I thought, that's really the life I thought I wanted. But then I thought, I have this special gift that not everybody has. So when I started to do that, I just started to pursue it. And that's really, truly, to be a good stand-up, it's being authentic to yourself and what you want, and finally accepting that this is the career that you want. This is the things you want to wake up every day. It's not what your parents want. It's not what you might have thought your image would be to what you thought your life would be like, because life is very long. They say life is short. It's also very long. And to do something that you don't enjoy, it's not a smart way to go, especially in today's world. As you know, it's really important to be passionate and enjoy it. And as I was pursuing acting and stand-up comedy and trying to get an agent, I would, be dating a couple guys or whatever, and they'd say, "Oh my God, how many auditions have you gone on without getting anything? I mean, how long are you going to let this go on for?" And I was like, well, gosh, I don't know. I just know that I get excited when I get an audition, and I get a little disappointed when I don't get it, but I kind of enjoy the pursuing of it. So I always tell people, just as long as you're enjoying it, don't put a timeline on any business that you're pursuing. I finally got my first job as a writer on the Keenan Ivory Wayans late night talk show. He had it for about a year, and I didn't even think I wanted to be a writer, and I stayed home all Memorial Day weekend and wrote this packet. And the only way I had to watch the show. I couldn't just go on YouTube. I couldn't DVR it or TiVo it or whatever they had. I didn't have any of that. I just had to be at home to watch it, to get the cadence and to get his point of view. And I met with him and I got hired. And one of the reasons I got hired is because he said, I want a white female in the writer's room. I want her point of view. I have, 5 guys who are white. I have 5 black guys, and I have 1 black woman. And so let me get a white woman. And I'm always really, that was a great experience. I'm still friendly with them today. I ended up writing White Chicks with them later. And that is why it is so important that we have diversity in the writer's room. and hopefully in all businesses, because you're getting a different perspective of people. And looking back maybe 20 years ago of how Hollywood and especially television was made up, I think about 90% of the executives that made the decision at that time were white males. And it's not their fault. They did nothing wrong. They got a job, and comedy is subjective. And which means you really kind of relate to the comedian or the story that relates to your life. So when I would be doing a showcase, it would be, a bunch of guys and maybe me, maybe one, man of color. But they would always seem to choose the guy that was white because oh my God, that bar mitzvah bit just killed me. And, I didn't even, and I never wanted to play the girl card. I was just happy to be there. In some ways, at that time, females weren't bonding because it was like, it's either she or me that's going to get this part, or going to get this spot at the Comedy Store. And so it only came later that people occurred to go, you know what, we need to bond together and smile together as women. But it was very hard. And to get representation back then, I remember I went to go do a show at a place called Luna Park, and there was a guy who was running it. And I said, I've got 8 agents coming to see me today. And he goes, all right, that'll be $64. I said, but he's seeing all of us. Like, why don't we comp them? Because $64 is a lot for me. I don't care. I'd pay $64 for the 8 agents to come see my set, thinking, this is the final meeting. They're going to finally represent me. I'm going to finally be able to send out and get work. And the guy before me was quite funny, and they were smitten. And he got off stage, and they brought him over to the booth, and they signed him, and they did not even listen to my set. Those are the kind of stories that weren't great, but got me here today and makes me happy that there's so many more opportunities for people to get their content and their talent and their business ideas out there. And after working in television for many years, I was a writer and producer of a show called Chelsea Lately. That ended, and I thought about a year after, I guess I'll do a podcast. I don't know how else I can get the word out that I'm going to Dallas to do stand-up, but maybe some people that listen to podcasts will come see me. And that was about 5.5 years ago, and I started doing Juicy Scoop, and I never would have thought that this would be the highlight of my career. I wrote books. I was in movies. I, worked on a show for 7 years in which I was also featured. But this was it because it was an intimate way to find my audience. I found my audience. It might not be millions of people, but it was just enough. Hopefully it'll become more to know that they found what related to them. And it didn't matter what an NBC executive said or what they thought was funny. I found my own audience. And I think that's really what I'm so proud and blessed about, and even with it, I was doing a stand-up show, and after I was talking to some of the people that came, and they were exchanging numbers in that town to meet each other, the women. And I said, oh my God, that's so great. You guys actually can say you met at my show in Chicago. And that's when I got the idea to start my own Facebook group, Juicy Scoop Obsessed, so that people could find each other in the cities and actually make friends with each other because they liked the same thing, which is just my show, which is just Juicy Scoop and Escape, comedy, reality stars, true crime. That's all it is. And with great guests. And I then also, because I was a sorority girl at USC, I started sorority chapters in which I have the Alpha chapters in OC, and they meet for dinner like once a month. And it makes me feel so great that I brought really great, smart, not all women, but predominantly women together to support each other. They've shared each other's businesses, ideas, and that is where we are today. And, so next time some guy says, hey, why don't you smile? You know what? Maybe just smile. Just go, yeah, I am going to smile because my life's great and I'm a woman and I feel good about myself. And, that guy who's not smiling, who everyone just thinks, wow, he's got a lot on his mind. He must be really busy. No, he's just a grumpy, unhappy person. And you who's not smiling is ruling the world. And if you choose to smile, you choose to smile. But when someone says that to you, you can just say, all right, well, why don't you smile with your with your face? Or just keep moving on and know that you're being your authentic self, you're doing what you love, and you are touching people in whatever you choose to do, which hopefully will be your true passion, will be that one or two things that you're good at, that not everybody can do. Thank you so much for listening to this. I'm Heather McDonald, and I'm so excited to introduce Danielle Harvey, the Assistant Vice President of Alumni Association at USC.